Hello, Jim Howard here in Fort Worth, Texas. Today's date, it is March 8th of 2023, and it's almost 8 p.m. I've got, as you know, if you watched one of the other, previous videos of whatever, I have a Samsung Note 10 Plus. See, is that what the total thing is called? No, Samsung Galaxy Note 10 Plus. And it is a beautiful cell phone. My daughter, one of my daughters, gave it to me for my birthday. And it's something that I would, well, I would if I had the money. If I had money, I would buy something like that for myself. But anyway, she bought it for me. It is I haven't had time to experience, everything, with this yet. I haven't even gone into the things you do with the pen very much. I haven't done it. I haven't gone to any of the things you can do. I haven't even opened any of those folders yet. But it is a fantastic, it's just a fantastic device. And anyway, I was feeling kind of bad. Well, I've been feeling bad for a couple of weeks or whatever. I told you about that, and I really don't want to mention it. I mean, but I do, because it enters into everything. I was feeling kind of bad, extra bad this morning, and I took a nap and feel a little bit better now. I haven't. I want to get outside and make, especially when the moon and planets and things like that. I want to get out with this cell phone and give it a try. I need to do some settings on it, don't I? Everything seems to be working okay with my B-Link 2. The Manicam seems to be, working okay. Just wanted to, I think, kill a little bit of time here, kind of fill you up on what's going on. By the way, my daughter got me a really good case for this. It's such a beautiful cell phone, that it's nice to, and it's got Gorilla Glass on the front and back, and weatherproof and all this kind of stuff. And it's a beautiful device. But I'm a little bit afraid, of dropping it or something, or getting it knocked off or something. Let me have some Coke here. I'm just going to pull up a few things here just for I watch I think a lot of them up in Utah. I watch these tow truck people. They're more than that. They have garages and that kind of stuff. I watch some of their videos. It's interesting. Family type you know, thing. Their wives, you know, do the editing of videos and that kind of stuff. I really like the videos of view of the fifth column or whatever. He really makes, I recommend. I'll put a link below, you know, so you can go there. So something else on here. Where was that? Let's see. Here's the other, another guy up in that area, Robbie Layton. There's about 3 of them that I watch regular. Been a lot of near misses at airports, and that's kind of frightening. I mean, you know, I'm sure the FAA and all the agencies that deal with that kind of stuff are, you know, I watched a bunch of these videos by this girl who is, her family, you know, her and her family are from the Ukraine. No, not the Ukraine. Ukraine? But they came, their family came before. Well, there have been problems there forever, but they came before the current problems with Russia. This riles me up big time here in the United States, and it's political, and it's just an awful lot of, you know, there's gun control, and Americans' love of guns and all this type of stuff. You know, it's a problem. It's out of control. And then you have the thing with sheriffs, and on the one hand, sometimes I think, well, they should do away. But on the other hand, the sheriffs were like in the beginning, before there was state highway patrol and Texas Rangers and all this kind of stuff. I mean, and even in the UK, the sheriff, over there, before we had our sheriffs here, I guess, they held a place of importance. But here in the United States, the problem is you have major cities, and you have major police departments. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not so good. And then you have sheriffs, and of course you have some sheriffs that have a large, county or their jurisdiction in it, and they have the funds, and their officers are hopefully trained, and a lot of them have, degrees and all this kind of stuff. But then you have the rest of the United States, and you have these very small counties, and you have them in poor states, Mississippi and Alabama and all this kind of stuff, and they're elected, by the people, elect the sheriff. And the sheriffs cater to the people that have the money to help them get elected, and it's a problem, and I don't know how to solve it. Like I said, and I've talked about it in the past, that there shouldn't be police departments in, you know, outside of major cities or whatever, out in some place where there's almost no people, and they have a police department. And it's the same, like, although the county, the sheriffs, they have a long history of whatever, but here you have this, headline: sheriff's groups say they have the authority to override federal, laws and stuff. Probably doesn't say that. What's it gonna say? Sheriff's groups say they have the authority to override laws that violate the Constitution. So some sheriff, I guess he never heard of the, Supreme Court, or maybe never heard of any court, So you have these guys that got elected sheriff, and they have their opinion on guns, and if some law comes out, state law or federal law, oh my God, federal law, they go fucking crazy about, that they don't have to obey the federal law because they're a sheriff, and and they were elected by the local people and all that kind of stuff. And I'm a little bit acquainted with a lot of the situations about sheriffs. I was not a reserve. I had for many years. I really didn't have to do much of anything. It just worked out that way. That I had a full Cass County, Missouri, deputy sheriff's, commission, a full one. Their full-time officers had full commissions. Everybody else, if you were like a reserve officer for the county, or if you were part of the horse patrol thing, or whatever you were, you had a not a full commission, even though you were, you had your commission was good when the sheriff, you had one, but it was not a full commission. And your commission was when the sheriff calls upon you to do something, then, you have, police powers, all that kind of stuff. But I was also a reserve officer. I forget how many years, 9 years, 10 years. And I never missed a night. Whatever. Well, the last 2 or 3 years I was not patrolling one night a week. I wasn't patrolling. If they needed me for something, they called me, or if they wanted somebody to go out and take a report on something, they could call me, and I'd go out and do that kind of stuff. But for the most part, I was out there, and the county that the city Raymore was in Cass County, for a whole bunch of years, Cass County did not have, well, in the beginning, we used, our radio, we used the Cass County dispatcher. Now, the only problem was Cass County didn't have enough money to be able to afford to run. They didn't have enough money to have cars out patrolling the county. In the beginning, I didn't realize, right in the beginning, I was in patrolling by myself, of course, the city of Raymore. All, like it was up to us, the reserve officers. One night a week, each one of us took one of the nights. I ended up with Sunday nights, I think, for all that time. But so in the very beginning, I don't think I knew until I was out there a lot of times, every week, by myself. But I knew the other reserve officers, they kept their scanner. I mean, they couldn't always, but they kept their scanner on in case something would come up. They'd respond, I don't think they ever had to for me, but anyway, I was thinking, oh man, here I am, out here all by myself. Now the nearest town, Belton, Missouri, if something came up, they'd send one of their, well, maybe more if they had to. They had maybe 3 officers on duty on the midnight shift or something. And sometimes they were always busy though, but I knew that they would, and a highway patrol officer. Now, of course, he had a big area to cover, but he'd respond if, I never had that ever happen either. But, well, I did on a fatality accident that I've mentioned that before. But I was, anyway, I was out there this one night patrolling, and a Cass County Sheriff, deputy pulled in, came over, pulled up next to me, and I said, hey, how's everything going? And, we talked a little bit. And I said, how many of you are on duty, in Cass County? And he said, I'm the only one. I said, you're the only one for the entire county? He said, yep. And I said, I was feeling bad because I had, I had Raymore, Missouri to patrol, and you have the entire county. But so we used their radio channel until first thing we got was eventually we got a dispatcher on the midnight shift, and then eventually the city, Raymore, got 1 police officer on the night shift, and until that happened, until it became a thriving little community. But what would happen, like, we'd be out there and we'd be using the Cass County radio when something come up, when we checked a building or found a door unlocked or doing a car stop or something like that. And sometimes the dispatcher didn't come back, and what I figured out and knew, and I guess probably all of us knew, was Cass County didn't have enough money to have 1 officer out patrolling. But they did have a dispatcher, but sometimes when the guy did go out to patrol or whatever, and then he'd come back to the station, in Harrisonville there, and then he'd go inside, and the dispatcher probably would go back and get a coffee or a Coke or start talking to the officers. I mean, because he would, because they sort of had the feeling, well, okay, our officer's here. But the dispatchers, they should have known that, hey, there's a Raymore officer out there by himself. There's a peculiar, and peculiar was peculiar. It was smaller than small. And a lot of times they didn't have it. Sometimes there was, and that officer was using, And then, of course, there was others, that were probably using it. But it's a problem with these sheriff's departments. And then you've got them, they're blown up with self-importance. I've seen you probably, if you've watched any YouTube videos, don't watch them, it'll probably piss you off. There's these sheriffs that think that they run things. This is my county, and I was elected by these people. I've seen YouTube videos where the police or the state police or whatever show up and take the sheriff into custody, and because of stuff that's going on, and it's really, you just look at it and you think, oh my God, I don't know what the solution is, and because of the history, the tradition, I just don't think that you should have, of course it's a county. You have federal government, you have, state government, you have city government, you have, county sheriffs, you have these, but some places, if you can't have, I guess that's what it boils down to. If you have, there should be enough funding to make sure that there is adequate, policing, and that you don't have sheriffs, who have been elected who think, hey, this is my county, and I don't know what, we have 50 different states, so you'd have different, maybe the cities and the state should step in with enough money that, that the county could have qualified people. But of course, I don't know how you're going to solve the problem if the sheriff is going to be elected. Well, if he's out drinking beers with his, buddies and doing that kind, I don't know how you solve the problem, but it is a problem. Let me move on. I don't know why I got onto that. It's just something I've experienced through the years. There was something else that I saw here. Here's some kids that I'll fly away. The cotton picking kids. I bet that would be good, but if I clicked on it, it'd be a copyright violation or something or other. I don't know what the way, I can understand both sides of and not more than both sides of the thing. I told you about a long time ago out at a mall, went into the mall here in Fort Worth. And I was making a video. I came in the mall wasn't doing much business. In fact, I don't think it's hardly in business anymore. Things just changed with the economy and stuff. People buying from Amazon and the whole bit. But I came in down and was walking through the mall part that there wasn't hardly anybody there, And in the background, I could barely hear the music coming over the thing. It was kind of weak, but I thought as I was walking and talking, I thought, and I even mentioned it. I said, this is probably going to get a copyright strike from Amazon for whatever. And sure enough, it did. It didn't matter to me. I didn't fucking care. But it's too bad that. And like one of the favorite things I like on here on the internet, everything is the Antiques Roadshow from the UK. The UK version I like much better than the United States version. But I mentioned this several times. I went over one time here and clicked on it, and then I couldn't find, and it starts, I was saying, hey, this is great. The Antiques Roadshow. And I clicked on it, and then, okay, where in the heck is because music started right away. And it took me about a minute to find the thing to silence it or something. And of course I got a copyright, whatever. You should be able to, well, I don't know. I know that's out of my pay grade. Yeah, how are we going to show you, hey, if you can't, and of course people would use, they'd use an excuse, okay, there was something in here I wanted to show you about, let's see. Where is that? Looks like a massive cold blast is about to hit the East Coast. It's even going to come down a little bit into Texas. This was posted 3 hours ago. Amazon's new home internet service. Here's something, I don't know who it is. Somebody says Ron DeSantis might have serious mental issues. It says the majority report with, and I don't know who the person is. And Oh, this is, I've got a friend that I went through grade school with him. And then we both, uh, Fred and I graduated from grade school. We both went into De La Salle Military Academy. And he knew what he wanted to do. I knew what I wanted to do. He wanted to go in the Marine Corps, and he did. And served. And then got out, got him a PhD, and continued to do work in the civilian government, having to do with military bases, that kind of, because his degree was, I never can remember, it's in, anyway, here in Texas, at a major area that is a military base, he was, I think he wrote a book on that, and that was his thing for years that he did. Well, he wrote a book, at least one book, on military decorations, or Marine Corps decorations. And I guess I'm not showing you what I was, let's see. And then then at Fort Hood, I think it was, his job down there, he was working for the government, but I think the military underneath the, and his job there was to make sure that no unnecessary damage was done to any Indian artifacts, any campsites, any of their stuff, to make sure that the military there on the base didn't go out and blow up something or use some area as a missile range or something like that. So he did that, and then he wrote a documentation or a book about that, about the place and stuff, all that kind of stuff. But anyway, he really liked the Marine Corps. His, I think, stepfather was in the Marine Corps. And I wanted to ask him about this, the future of the, haven't read it, I haven't watched all the information on it yet, but the United States has already, I think, maybe it's not totally in effect, has changed the Marine Corps, the way it's set up and the way it is going to operate in the future. And I wanted to ask his opinion about the thing. By the way, I mentioned I wanted to go in the Army. I couldn't get in the Army. They had too much sense. They wouldn't let me in. But Fred made it through into the Marine Corps and came out and got a PhD. I think that's what I wanted. There was something else in here, I think. Okay, I've been talking about 30 minutes, and that is, whoops, that is, no, I know what it was. I don't see it now. Well, I'll just tell you about it without, I think it might be the history guy, I think. There's a guy, and that's what he's called, I think, the history guy, and he does great YouTube videos about history. Really interesting. And I think I just saw that he had one about Project Needles, I think it was called. And the United States government, decided to launch little tiny needles, millions of them, I mean, into outer space, into the ionosphere. Above the United States there's layers, and there's the ionosphere, which reflects back radio communications and does all kinds of things. And a lot of scientists around the world said, don't do it, because they were going to launch, they did, fire these things up, and all these little tiny, and went into space. There was the, okay, I'm going to forget it. Research, okay, that was it. Okay, research group of the Satellite Scatter Coordination. Okay, that was it. So I was in charge of research group C of the Satellite Scatter Coordination. No, MIT. Let's see, MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology Research Group on Satellite Scatter Coordination or something. And I was in charge of research group C, and we did some. So that's kind of interesting. You know, I think I might have already watched that History Guy's thing about it a long time ago. And of course, there was no mention made of Research Group C. But anyway, thank you very much for watching.